Great, please call the roll.
Brattin.
Here.
Hudson. Here. Schroer. Here. Gregory. Henderson. Here. Nierenbarn. Weber.
All right, quorum being established, I make a motion that we move into executive session. Can I get a second? I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are in executive session. I make a motion that we bring up and take up Senate Bill 971. Can I get a second? I got a second. I move to adopt Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 971 and 906. We're going to combine these two bills together. Can I get a second? Got a second. Any discussion on that? So let me just kind of explain what this does. It's basically takes kind of where we ended the year last year with open enrollment, with a transfer cap, establishes a 3% cap on the number of students who may transfer, allows for a 1% increase each time the cap is reached, and sets a maximum at 5%. And then with the transportation, it's either going to, it revises it to where it's either provided by the receiving district, or basically parents are responsible for having to do the transportation of their students. So, and this is Senator Gregory's bill as well. I don't know if you have any comments, Senator. Okay. Any? Oh, proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. So we received this committee substitute last night at after 9:33. So a lot here, and obviously this is not very different from the bill that was presented. And I guess just some frustration as to how this process is transpiring. I think it's really important, especially if that's the intention. Obviously, we'll continue these conversations on the floor. But again, just recognizing we went from one bill, and yes, while it's been an evergreen topic, now what we're looking at and voting on today is very different from what we had before us last week. So I think the committee substitute is 40 plus pages. Is that correct?
It's, yeah, roughly around 40
Okay.
pages.
So just again, getting this at past 9:30, obviously I didn't see it until this morning, but quite frankly, just to be able to work in good faith and work with one another, if we can have some advance notice, I honestly would really appreciate that. I just feel like that's very short notice to turn around and have to look at this morning and then vote on it. So just wanted to bring that to before.
Well, I know our legislative team. I mean, I know they're definitely having to pump out a lot of legislation. I asked for subs, the beginning of or end of last week, and just receiving, not knocking in any way, shape, but I know they're overloaded. So it's not that these requests weren't made to do that.
And by no means is it anything. I know we put a lot on our staff, and I'm very grateful for all the work they do. But again, just there's always, whether it's a delay, just to give us a little bit of time to go through it. I think it's important. So with that being said, I do have a couple of questions. With the transportation, this has always been kind of one of the sticking points. Is this, in this version that we have before us, is this transportation, is there a stipend if a parent provides transportation? Is it reimbursed? What is the funding mechanism for transportation, or is there one?
Yeah, the receiving district is reimbursed, but as for the parents, I don't believe there's a stipend. It's on you as a parent to provide your own transportation.
Okay. In terms of caps in how many students can leave per school year, is there any sort of cap on this one?
I just know this is for those that are receiving the students. So what's this?
Looks like Senator Henderson has it.
My understanding, I've been working a little bit with them. We haven't really had the time. I'm like you, it's been so busy we haven't had time to sit down for a long period, but I think there's a cap 3% the first year, then it can go to 5%. So in other words... And
then is the cap eventually removed after a few years?
I think this one has a 5% cap in it, is my understanding
In
right now. And again, I've looked through it a little bit, just like you, we just got it. I've been in contact with both of the sponsors a little bit. And the 3%, what I had told them was, you got to give a district a chance to try to, if they see they're losing them. And I think I've mentioned this here before. I've probably talked to, I don't know how many superintendents, and all but one said they thought they'd gain, which is actually a good thing. They think they've got a good school, but there is a cap at 3% to start. I know
Okay.
that.
And obviously, we can look at other specifics as, we have this on the floor. But just kind of want to conclude by saying I think one of the things that resonated with me most last week when a different version of the bill was before us was for all of us to be cognizant of the fact that we do not have a formula that can disperse funds in this way currently. And so obviously we've had a lot of conversations about the task force that is underway to rewrite the formula, but just being cautious of putting the cart before the horse on this one and making sure, I think especially as we're looking at where we are going with the formula, this would put an incredible hindrance on all school districts to be able to receive their funds, as well as the fact that quite frankly we don't have a way inside of DESE to be able to disperse the formula checks. So being aware of all of that. Okay, thank you for the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Any further discussion? See none. I make a motion that we adopt a substitute. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. I move that we move Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 971-906 do pass. Can I get a second? Get a second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Brattin.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Gregory. Henderson. Nurnberg. Schroer. Weber.
By your vote of 5-2, the bills pass. I make a motion that we do pass Senate Bill 978, or take up, 978. Have a second. I move that we adopt Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 978. Can I get a second? I got a second. Any discussion on the substitute?
Just very briefly. Mr. Chair, if Senator Schroer just could explain the substitute for us, what did we take out here?
Okay, so my office kind of made the changes to it. So they made sure that the material that was actually being presented was making sure that it was age appropriate for that content, and then also allowed for, and it's at the very end of the substitute, that there is an authorization by parents at it's the very last page of the substitute.
Okay, thank you.
Because I know that was some of this stuff, so that's what we added to it.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, I make a motion that we adopt a substitute. All those seconds, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. I move that Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 978 do pass. Second. Get a second. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Brattin.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Gregory. Henderson. Nurnberg. Schroer. Weber.
By your vote of 5-2, the motion passes. I make a motion that we bring up Senate Bill 1002. I have a second. I make a motion that Senate Bill 1002 be due pass. Can I get a second? Any discussion? See none. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Brattin.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Gregory. Henderson. Nurnberg. Schroer. Weber.
By your vote of 5-2, the motion passes. I make a motion that we move out of executive session. The second, we're out of executive session. Now we're going to move into hearing of Senate bills. So we have two from Senator. It's the Nicola Brattin show today. So we're going to move and go ahead with. When do you have? You have appropriate. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead with Senator Nicola, and you can present. Start with one and present with the other. So if you want to start with Senate Bill 1085, and proceed. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm certainly glad you put my name first in that order. Thank you very much. Good morning, committee. Thank you very much for hearing Senate Bill 1085. It does have a Senate committee sub, .03C, if you have that. And for the record, I'm Senator Joe Nicola. I represent the District 11, part of Jackson County, Missouri. I filed this bill because parents deserve to know what is happening with their children when they're at school. It addresses situations where children are socially transitioning at school and their parents are not being informed. At its core, this is a parental rights and a transparency issue. This bill was named for a high school girl in Virginia whose social transition was kept secret from her family. One of the results was that Sage became the victim of sex trafficking after she ran away from home, where her family knew nothing of the transitioning that had been happening at school. Unfortunately, we have schools here in this state who are doing the same thing. Thankfully, though, even California, the courts have recognized this is an affront to parents' rights. A federal court judge there has ruled that keeping these secrets from parents is unconstitutional, going so far as to order the following statement to be displayed in California public schools. Parents and guardians have a federal constitutional right to be informed if their public school child expresses gender incongruence. Teachers and school staff have a federal constitutional right to accurately inform the parent or guardian of their student when the student expresses gender incongruence. These federal constitutional rights are superior to any state or local laws, state or local regulations, or state or local policies to the contrary. And that's what the judge and the courts decided to put in the schools. And I believe, committee, if it can be done in California, it surely can be done here in the state of Missouri. Here's what my bill does. It applies to public and charter schools and focuses on what is known as social transition. In the bill, social transition is defined as changes in a student's gender presentation or expression, with the goal of being perceived as a gender different from the student's biological sex. This can include changes to names or pronouns, access to sex-separated spaces like restrooms and locker rooms, participation in sex-separated activities, or related changes in school records. First, it makes clear that the school staff may not encourage or coerce a student to keep information from their parents when that information relates to the child's physical, emotional, or mental health. Second, it requires parental notification. If a student asks school staff to participate in or facilitate a social transition at school, the parent must be notified within 24 hours. This ensures parents are aware of significant requests being made by their child and can be involved in decisions that affect their family. Third, the bill establishes boundaries for school staff. Staff may not facilitate a student's social transition, may not deliver instruction on gender transition or social transition, and may not use names or pronouns that do not align with a student's biological sex or legal name while acting in their official capacity at school. The bill also includes protections. No staff member or student may be disciplined or declining to use names or pronouns that conflict with biological sex. And staff members who report violations of the law are protected from retaliation. Finally, SAGE's law provides enforcement options. Parents, staff members, and the Attorney General have the ability to seek relief if the law is violated, ensuring accountability and clarity for everyone involved. This bill does not restrict students. It governs adult conduct in schools and establishes clear expectations around transparency, and parental involvement. SAGE's law is about trust between schools and families. When schools keep secrets from parents, children and families are harmed. This bill makes clear that parents are not obstacles to be worked around. They are essential partners in their children's lives. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Senator, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I know, where did you say the name of the law? What state did you say?
California.
California. So, you know, this is happening a lot closer than California. In fact, a family from Lee Summit, of which you butt up against Lee Summit, I represent part of Lee Summit, the school district, was caught doing this with students within their districts. So this is right here in Missouri. It's actually right in my district, and it's bordering your district, and I'm sure this is happening everywhere. This is a flagrant infringement on parental rights, and it's manipulation of students, and should never be occurring. And it's unfortunate in this world that we're having to do this, but it's unfortunate, but it's necessary. So I appreciate you being willing to bring this forward. It receives a lot of flack, a lot of hate, a lot of, I guess, trying to demonize parents as though they're evil and they want ill intent for their children, and that's what you'll hear a lot of in the opposition. The parents, want what's worse for their child. But that's furthest from the case, so I appreciate it very much. Any question? Did you have a question, Senator? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
I'm going to preface my comments by saying here in the Education Committee, I don't think we've had one bill this session talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic. And over again, that's what I hear, that we need to get back to the basics. We need to work on improving educational outcomes for all of Missouri students. And I would love if we could spend our time doing that. But here we are again. And I'm going to try to remain calm because this is one that's near and dear to my heart because I love a lot of these kids. And as many of you know, I was a teacher, because I say it all the time, for 13 years. And when I was reading your bill, I was thinking about my student, Joey. And Joey was transitioning with his parents' full support. And I remember Joey coming in my classroom as a freshman and handing me a note to say, here's the name that I would like to be called, here are my preferred pronouns. And over 4 years that I got to know and really care about Joey, I saw the transition, I saw him go to court and change his legal name, all of those things. So my question is, when I read your bill, I didn't see any provisions in your bill that allow parents to grant permission to the school to call their child by their preferred name and their preferred pronouns. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So just to be clear, there are a lot of parents and a lot of guardians out there who support their child and their child's transition. So what I see this bill doing away is actually taking away parental rights. A parent's right to choose what they think is best for their child. And again, a lot of frustration with this one, that this is what we are doing with our time when there are so many issues facing our schools today.
I would agree with you, Senator, on that too. I would love to get back to the reading, writing, and arithmetic and focus on really educating our kids. I would love to be able to do that. I've worked for a public school district for 17 years. I was a youth minister for 9 of those years. I've been a pastor now for almost 37 years working with families and kids. I think you and I probably share some of the same concerns, and I'd be happy to work with you on this too and this bill.
And Senator, and then when I see this, and I didn't even get into the penalty provisions part, like, when I talk with people today who are hanging on by their fingernails to stay in the classroom, it's this stuff that's forcing teachers to leave. They are so fed up. They want to be in the classroom for all the reasons because they love kids and they love teaching. And this is the stuff that is handcuffing them and forcing them to leave the classroom. So when I looked at this, I thought, gosh, I wouldn't be a teacher in Missouri today. I mean that sincerely, and there's a lot to be said. I know we're going to hear from those who would be directly impacted at that, so I'm going to leave that there, Senator. But
Yeah.
this one was a tough one for me to see this morning.
I do appreciate your comments, Senator. Thank you.
Senator Gregory?
I don't know if you know this in general, because I don't know the answer. What are the rules of a minor child going to a mental health or therapist or psychologist in school when they release anything? I'm not talking about transitioning. I'm talking about anything besides maybe suicide. I'm assuming they have to go tell the parents at that point. Do you know what the rules are, how old they are, when it's disclosed, when it's not? Do we know what the hard...
As far as the mental health
Yeah, when
issues,
it comes to mental health therapy
yeah.
or discussions.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics on that. I do know that, schools contact the parents for nearly everything. If the kids are sick, right, you call the parents. Take aspirin or whatever. So as far as the mental health issue part of it, I'm not real clear on that. We have some experts that will be coming up to speak. Maybe they can speak to that. Thank you.
Any further questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone to testify in support? Please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form.
Oh, sorry, it's right back there. Good morning. My name is Jamie Reed, and I am the co-executive director of the LGB Courage Coalition and the whistleblower from within a pediatric gender clinic. This bill is not about controlling children. It's discussing how adults, institutions, and schools are permitted to operate around children. What the international research has now made clear, and what I would like to address in regard to the student named Joey, is that social transition is not a neutral act. We now know that that pathway put that child onto a pathway that there is no international evidence that supports. That child was put on a pathway of harm. Across countries and healthcare systems, it has been identified as a one-directional pathway that will overwhelmingly lead to a medical intervention. International evidence shows that the vast majority of children who socially transition later desist, when previous approaches would lead to that desistance. Instead, social transition is now strongly predicting a pathway to puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and now surgeries. That really matters here in the state of Missouri because Missouri is already recognized based on evidence that the medical pathway for children carries real risks. We have already restricted the medical pathway. The promised benefits did not materialize and harms are clear. So the question before us is simple and unavoidable. Why are we still supporting the on-ramp in our schools onto a pathway that we've already determined in this state the next steps are no longer permitted or legal? Why are we telling children that they can start when we've already said you cannot finish this because it will hurt you? Social transition is not just names and pronouns or neutral. Multiple systematic international reviews has said that this is a medical intervention that does not belong in a social space like a school. And when even one single child is socially transitioned in a school, it changes the entire normative environment for every single other child in that building, which is why one family consent affects every single child. And what would necessitate parental consent would be that every single family in that school provide consent for their child to be around a socially transitioned child. This is not moral judgment at all. This is developmental reality. Our adolescents are highly sensitive to peer cues, authority signals, and social validations. When a single identity is publicly affirmed by adults embedded in school policies and treated as a protected status, it is not private, it is within that school. And what we now know is that that identity formation itself is part of the social contagion that we have seen rip through this country around this concept of trans. My colleague Lauren Legere will speak further about how we know that this pathway disproportionately impacts truly gender nonconforming children who would otherwise grow up to be gay or lesbian adults like myself. This bill does not silence any child. It is simply asking the adults in the room to not place a child onto an on-ramp where we know that the pathway forward is simply to physically harm their bodies. If medical endpoints this state has already decided is too risky to offer, then no institutional pathway that reliably leads in that direction should be allowed at all. This is why we fully support this bill as an LGB organization that operates nationally and is formed and lives within the state of Missouri. Thank you. I welcome any questions as well.
Well, thank you for your courage to come and testify. I know, can you just speak a little bit about, where you started and to where you've come to this realization and to testify today?
Yes.
Because, I mean, you've really helped further along protecting children in this state, and it took a lot of courage on your part. And I don't know if people listening in really realize what you had to put on the line to do so.
Thank you for the question. So, as many know, I was a true believer and worked within a pediatric gender center in this state for almost 5 years. I went into that believing that we had a strong evidence base that was internationally recognized and that this was a pathway that would lead children to good outcomes. What I saw was that it was a pathway directly to harm. And what is very interesting, if we think about where I started close to 6 years ago to now, is that every single thing that I warned about and said in that whistleblow has now become international. It is becoming the international consensus. Just last week, we had 2 major medical associations within this country agree that the international evidence is completely falling apart, that we should medically do this to any child. And what we saw out of the CAS report and the systematic reviews that came out of the UK is that a social transition is part and parcel with that medical pathway. What they saw in the UK in Tavistock is nearly every single child that was put on a puberty blocker went on to cross-sex hormones and went on to surgery. This is a one-way ticket. And when you're putting a child onto that social pathway in a school setting, you are basically saying in this state to these kids, we're putting you on a pathway that the state has already determined will hurt you. And what I hear out of a lot of these schools is basically now schools, therapists, teachers are basically saying, oh, we wish that you still had the medical pathway, but the mean Republicans have taken it away from you, and that they're going to start facilitating moving kids into other states, moving kids across state lines. This entire country is embattled and roiled over this right now because the international consensus is and has been completely collapsing around a medical transition for a child. Last week, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons has come out and said they reviewed all of the evidence. There is no good evidence to support the surgical pathway for a child up to the age of 19. And in their own review, they also said that the other medical pathways of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones did not have the evidence to support it. This is purely a scientific evidence-based question. And what we know in the evidence is that a social transition is part of the harm. And we should not have our schools participating in harming kids in any way.
Now, thank you for the clarification and your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming up. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lauren Legere, and I am the co-executive director of the LGB Courage Coalition, which is a national nonprofit led by gays and lesbian adults working to protect children from premature medical and social interventions. I want to be very clear at the outset, this bill does not target children. It addresses how adults and institutions respond to a child's distress. This bill regulates the actions of adults towards children. When we talk about children who are distressed about sex and gender, we need to begin with the basic truth that many of these children who are gender nonconforming, and a large proportion of them, absent intervention, would grow up to be gay and lesbian adults. Decades of developmental research illustrates this. Gender nonconformity in childhood has long been associated with same-sex attraction in adults. Boys who are sensitive, feminine, or uninterested in male stereotypes, girls who are masculine, assertive, or uncomfortable with female norms. These are not new children. They are children like us, children like me. Joey, the young girl that was just referenced earlier, she was a little girl like me. Not a boy, not a child requiring lifelong medicalization, not a child with anything wrong with her, just a proto-gay kid who has been led down a path of self-denial and lifelong bodily harm. Calling Joey a boy is homophobic, full stop. What has changed recently is how our schools address how adults interpret these kids who may be a little different. Instead of saying, you're a boy who doesn't conform or you're a girl who doesn't fit expectations, we increasingly say, you might actually be the opposite sex. This completely reframes a developmental pathway towards homosexuality as evidence of cross-sex identity. This bill does not prevent children from expressing themselves or exploring who they are. It asks adults to slow down before transforming a child's discomfort into a fixed, institutionalized identity. Because social transition is not neutral, it is a psychological intervention. It takes a child's private confusion and turns it into a public, reinforced role. It changes how adults speak to the child, how peers respond to them, how schools categorize them, and how the child understands their own future, and it changes how the child conceptualizes himself or herself. Once everyone around a child recognizes reality to match a declaration, it becomes a psychological and socially difficult thing to step back from. The difficulty is not a failure of the child. It is a predictable result of adult behavior. For gender nonconforming children, social transition risks narrowing their future rather than protecting it. It can quietly communicate that growing up to be gay is not enough, that to be accepted, they must become something else. A compassionate approach does not rush to cement an identity. It allows children space to develop without adults prematurely medicalizing or reclassifying them. This bill is about adult restraint, not child suppression. And restraint in a low evidence environment is not cruelty, it is care. This bill protects little girls like me, and it would have protected Joey. I urge you to vote yes.
Well, thank you for your testimony. So I noticed you in your introduction, you brought up LGB, and when I was first elected, I mean, that was actually like the terminology, and it's since morphed into LGBT and then all the, so is it your belief that, we need to bring it back to, what it originally was the LGB, lesbian, gay, bisexual, aspect, and then and dropping, like we're shedding that? Is that what the move is?
We live in a pluralistic society. If people want to advocate for trans medical interventions, they're free to do so. I see it as inherently contradictory to the rights of homosexuals, given that most gender nonconforming kids grow up to be gay, and most gender nonconforming adults are gay. Being gay or lesbian is an innate sexuality. Being transgender is not innate. It requires medical intervention. There's no medical intervention I need to be a lesbian.
Okay. No, I appreciate that, and I wasn't trying to put you on the spot or be, negative toward. I was just wanting clarification. But thank you for your testimony and willingness to come present. Any questions? Senator, proceed.
I'm just curious. Do you believe being against same-sex marriage is homophobic?
Do I believe what?
Being against same-sex marriage is homophobic?
I think that a lot of impetus towards, or a lot of animus towards same-sex marriage may come from homophobia. I think if you're raised in a religious environment where you object to same-sex marriage, I don't necessarily know that you're homophobic. I will, till my dying day, defend Obergefell, and I've not heard any cogent reasons to overturn it.
Okay, because you were just very quick to declare somebody you hadn't met was homophobic. So I kind of figured if there's a massive policy issue, that you would have clear thoughts on that. So I guess maybe...
I think there's a big difference between adults getting married and physically transforming the bodies of young homosexuals.
Right, so my question is about adults consenting, getting married, and being allowed, you
two
think
adults can consent to marriage. A child cannot
okay,
consent.
and so being against that, is that homophobic in your opinion?
Being against gay marriage?
Yeah.
I don't know whether I could consider it homophobic. I guess it depends on the angle that you take, but I believe in gay marriage. I believe we have the right to be married.
What about
like
firing somebody for being gay? Is that homophobic?
Yeah, that would be homophobic.
Okay, so...
And we have protections against that.
Well, actually, we don't in Missouri. But, so your contention would be that these senators over there are homophobic? Who are against Mona?
I don't know their views.
I'm telling you that they're against it. So if
They're against gay marriage.
They're against Mona. They're against adding sexual orientation as a protected class in Missouri, protecting people, which you just said was homophobic. I'm just curious if you believe those senators over there are homophobic.
Right, well, that's not really the bill we're testifying on, and I would urge them to vote to protect my rights to not be fired, but that's not what we're testifying on
Yeah,
today.
I know, but
We're talking about medical
I had a
interventions
I had a
against the
question.
bodies of
I
children.
know, but I had a question about that. I was just curious if you could answer. You believe they're homophobic?
I have no idea. I don't know them personally. I know right now they're standing up to protect the bodies of young gays and lesbians,
Yeah,
sir.
that's not my question. I just thought maybe as somebody who was, for an
Do
organization.
you always question people without good faith? I mean,
Yeah, I just
that's,
thought you
is
could
that how you
answer-
treat your constituents?
I thought you could answer the question.
I thought maybe we could stay on topic.
All right. Mr. Chairman.
Do you believe that intervening and cutting the breast off young lesbians is
Mr.
the same
Chairman,
thing
can
as
you get a hold of your-
opposing
Can you get a hold of your
gay
committee,
marriage?
please? Mr. Chairman, can you take?
I think they're greatly different, sir.
Senator, this is.
Can you get a hold of your committee?
This is my committee. You've engaged, so I'd say finish your inquiry, Senator.
Okay, but can you get a hold of your committee and make sure your witnesses will answer questions and not?
Well, I think they're answering your questions. I just don't think that it's the answers you like.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that you believe that these four senators are homophobic for being against Mona.
I would urge them to reconsider their thoughts on gay marriage. Again, sir, that is not why I'm here. I'm talking about
I know,
performing
we're trying to put it-
psychological
we're trying to put it in
interventions on
context.
proto-gay youth and brainwashing them to believe that they are the opposite sex. These are two different topics.
I
You would
agree.
think that elected officials could just stay on topic.
I just wanted you to answer the question. Mr. Chairman, I thought I was coming to the Education Committee this morning. Am I mistaken? Am I in a different committee?
Well, you're asking questions on Mona, of which the bill is about transitioning kids
No, I
in
just want-
school
are we-
format.
are we-
So I guess if
is-
you want to keep your comments to the bill at hand, we can continue to keep it at
Is this the
education.
am I in the Education Committee?
Well, yeah, it is, but,
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
A clarifying question, just procedurally. Is recording allowed in here or not?
We've had recording here going the
In
whole
the
time.
audience, is it allowed? I would just
We've
ask-
always had people in the audience recording.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
asking, just making sure. Honestly, just making sure we're okay with phones being up. And I remember just last week we had a conversation on the floor about making sure.
But this isn't the floor, and we've had people,
No, that's what
and
I'm
we've
asking.
had this
No,
the
Mr.
whole
Chair, that's what
time.
I'm asking. In other committees, I've had chairs ask people to put their phones down. I'm just asking, honestly. Thank you.
It's quite the spectacle that we're seeing from this committee. So, okay. Any further questions? I appreciate your testimony. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support?
Lisa Panett with Armorvine, and we are grateful for the sponsor, not only protecting the children and the parents, but also the other children that are having to participate in the classrooms, sometimes against their own faith, to have to participate in this type of delusion. And so we're grateful for the sponsor, and we're completely supportive.
Any questions? See none. Anyone else testify in support, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Matt Sharp. I'm senior counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. Our law firm represents parents, children, and educators whose constitutional rights have been violated. In recent years, a wave of secret transition policies have swept the nation. These policies found in more than 1,000 school districts direct school staff to conceal information from parents if a child expresses a desire to identify as a different gender, such as using a different name or pronoun. These policies sever the relationship between parents and children at a moment when young people may be experiencing profound emotional and psychological distress. And they even force teachers and students to say things that they know to be false and that violate their deeply held beliefs about what it means to be male and female. These harms are not theoretical. A Michigan school district treated a middle school girl as a boy and then scrubbed the child's educational record before sharing them with her parents. In New York, a mother who noticed her daughter was struggling with depression and anxiety repeatedly asked school officials about her daughter's emotional well-being. The school assured the mother nothing was happening, yet it was concealing that it had been treating the young girl as a boy for months. But the harms are not limited to parents. These same policies also threaten teachers and students with punishment unless they affirm radical gender ideology by addressing a person by pronouns and titles that are inaccurate and do not reflect biological truth. Pam Ricard is a math teacher in Kansas who was suspended after she declined to refer to a student by pronouns that were inconsistent with the student's sex. John Klug, a high school music teacher in Indiana, suffered a similar fate. After his school district announced that John was required to use the student's preferred pronouns, John asked for a modest accommodation, calling all students by their last names. The district at first granted this reasonable accommodation, but then after a handful of teachers complained, it revoked the accommodation and forced Mr. Klug to resign or be terminated. Peter Vlaming was a high school French teacher in Virginia who was fired for declining to use inaccurate pronouns to refer to a female student by male pronouns. And Vivian Garrity, a middle school English teacher in Ohio, was forced to resign after the school district began requiring teachers to personally participate in the social transition of children by using their preferred pronouns. And several Missouri school districts have policies just like these. For example, Kansas City Public Schools, their student code of conduct says, quote, school personnel may not disclose information that may reveal a learner's transgender status or gender nonconforming presentation to others, including parents, unless legally required to do so or the learner has authorized it. That same policy further warns, persons, including learners and employees, shall be addressed by a name and pronoun that corresponds to their gender identity. The intentional and persistent refusal to respect the gender identity of an employee or learner after notification of their preferred pronouns is a violation of this procedure. Senate Bill 1085 is a direct response to harmful policies like these. The bill protects the parent-child relationship by ensuring that no parent is kept in the dark if their child is struggling with their identity. Instead, it equips parents with the full information they need to lovingly guide and care for their child. This bill also protects caring teachers from losing their jobs simply because they cannot, in good conscience, call a boy a girl or hide information from parents. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Anyone else testifying support, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I really appreciate your time, and I want to thank you for listening to me and also to other people throughout the state of Missouri on this very important issue. My name is Marty Bennett. I live in St. Louis County. I'm in the Kirkwood School District and also to pairs at the community. And I have years of experience working in the K-12 education business. So some of you might remember the Tyler software for Infinite Campus. So I'm a competitor to those guys. Those are the bad guys, by the way. But our software is used primarily by small to medium-sized school districts throughout the state. I've been doing this for about 16 years. I hold an EDS from the University of Missouri in online education, and I have a professional educator's license with a school business official endorsement from the state of Illinois. 160 of Missouri's public school districts are my clients. And these are small to medium-sized districts. Although I live in the Kirkwood area, that's not my client base. And we have about a 30% market share. My company does. I work for a company out of Chicago. Some of my clients within the district's committee members, Senate districts, include Grandview and Hillsborough, right? And also Kingston over in Cadet. And down in District 31, Rich Hill and Hume, and also Howe Valley and Dora. I mean, you're probably the only people in this whole room that even know and heard of those towns. So I've been politically active based upon my professional experience in public school board elections, right? So I've been working to try to help people get elected as school district board members, and I've done so as a St. Louis County Republican committee. I've been doing this for about 11 years. And what we've concluded, due to the power of the teachers' unions and voter suppression, that it's just not worth working to try to change elections in St. Louis County public school districts. I mean, Mr. Gregory can tell you just how difficult that is. I mean, we had one person, remember? Izzy Emick, that was it. That's the only person that you can ever get elected in very red Rockwood School District. Remember that? Jessica Clark. So, and it's really getting kind of bad because only 10 of the 22 school board elections are even contested this year. Only about 10% of the voters even bother to show up at these elections. So we have shifted our focus contacting you because you're the only way to help kids in St. Louis County from a lot of problems that are being foisted onto them by really progressive folks, right, at school districts. The kind of things that are happening in St. Louis County are not happening down in Dora, right? It's not going on in Cadet, Missouri. And this legislation is exactly what's needed. What's been driving our activism, why do we care about this? Because Republicans, what do we worry about? We worry about taxes, property taxes, things like that. But what's causing us to get concerned about these things? And Senator Gray can tell you about it. And it's really driven by critical theory, right? Critical theory has changed the way people educate. And St. Louis County districts have really implemented broad-based or equity-based frameworks influenced by critical theory, along with gender identity programming influenced by queer theory, which is a subset of critical theory. These approaches encourage students to interpret social institutions through power and identity dynamics and to view gender identity as independent from biological sex. Remember we used to talk about, remember the science? We don't do that anymore, right? So critical theory has affected curriculum development, it's affected professional development, hiring, counseling, and student activities in St. Louis County Public Schools. Now what's going on here in St. Louis, or back home in St. Louis County, is not going on down in Taneyville, right? It's just not going on there. Now the evidence that critical pedagogy is successful is provided by the UCLA School of Law, the Williams Center. And I have this information, which we will forward to you. It has the links with these actual studies and surveys for your availability. These are the information I'm providing you. This is not from the Family Research Council. These are from pro-transgender organizations, right? And what they're pointing out is that the number of transgenders in Missouri, people from 13 to 17, grew from 2,500 in 2017 to 14,200 in 2025. That's almost a 500% increase. So critical theory and queer theory, it's working. It's as intended, right? So we need your relief to fix some of these issues. And how do we know that parents aren't telling children about what's going on? Because we ask them. Also included in what we'll be forwarding to you is an article reflecting what happened it's happening in St. Louis County Public Schools. And again, this may not be happening where you are, but it's certainly happening where I'm from. And so they've been successful. And this issue really matters because decisions involving identity, gender-altering procedures, and transgender mental health are deeply significant for a child's health and a family's very future, right? And the data that I'm providing to you is from surveys from the National Center of Transgender Equality indicates high rates of medical intervention among respondents and deadly mental health problems for transgenders. According to a 2015 survey from, again, the National Center for Transgender Equality, 49% of transgenders took some form of hormone therapies. 25% reported having some form of transition-based surgery. Okay? Their 2022 survey reported that 59% of respondents had some form of medical transition procedure, not delineating the type. Okay? And you will note that these experimental procedures are many times irreversible and cause other health problems, as Ms. Reed has so diligently and bravely told us about. I don't know her, never met her, but it takes a lot of bravery to do what she's done. And what she's done is talked about the tragedy of what's happening to these children, and schools aren't telling the parents what's going on in the first place, right? So, not only is it life-altering things, but but it also, it's about suicidal tendencies.
So we do have a lot to get through, so if you could kind of start to wrap up your presentation.
2
that way we
minutes,
can get
sir.
there.
2 minutes.
Well, I mean, we have several bills, so if you could,
Yes, sir.
like in 20 seconds, wrap up.
Well, 78% of respondents considered suicide, and 48% attempted suicide at some point, actually attempted suicide at some point in their lives. 78% considered, 40% attempted. So please pass this bill. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate your testimony, and thank you. Any questions? Proceed.
Obviously, that was a journey you took us on there. But am I correct in it sounds like your argument is that your local community and your local schools disagree with you on this and won't pass policies like this. And so you're asking the state to come in and tell those local governments to do what their local voters don't want to do. Is that accurate?
The local voters don't get involved in school board elections, so they don't know what's occurring. So we asked school districts what has happened as it relates to this, and they wouldn't tell us until we spent 2 years trying to get information. And it took me 2 years to hear from the Kirkwood School District superintendent, and he told me, I answered your question, sir.
So the local voters aren't doing this, so you want the state to come in
Well,
and do it.
the local voters.
Am I wrong? Is that incorrect?
The local voters have asked me, being one of them, the school district, what they do on this issue, and I only got an answer last spring. So,
Right, so you're coming to the state because you're trying to override the will of the local voters.
I'm coming to the state because the local school districts don't bother telling people the answer. Only a couple, 3 districts such as Melville, Ladue, and Parkway actually will tell you what they're going to do. All the other districts have refused to answer the question, except we finally got out of Kirkwood.
I'll be honest, you rambled so long, I have no idea what question we've been talking about, but thanks for wasting a bunch of our time today. Appreciate it.
Please, most egregious thing, you are the one asking, Senator, and you're the one being disrespectful to the witnesses and calling the members of this committee homophobic in your questioning. So you're the one going down this road. You're the one being disrespectful. You're the one being disrespectful.
Okay, if we're going to do this, we can do this. Did I?
We'll do this offline.
No, we can do it now. I
Senator.
asked if that was. I did not accuse you of being homophobic. I asked a question of the witness. Do you agree with me that I asked that?
Thank you, sir, for your
Mr.
testimony.
Chairman, do you agree with that? Do you agree with that?
Anyone else in support?
I'm disappointed in you.
I'm disappointed in your actions, Senator.
I wasn't talking to you there, Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, James Harris, registered lobbyist for Do No Harm Action. I guess there's been much more eloquent people than I have. I've noticed 2 things testifying on bills on this topic in the last couple of years. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of passion, because I think everyone has the same opinion. They care about the youth. We just have often different perspectives on what's in the young person's best interest. I wish I would say something like this is not needed, but even in 2023, the Parkway School District, a counselor contacted the Washington University Transgender Institute at Children's Hospital and was asking, do we need to inform the student about a youth that was wearing chest binding straps? Hopefully this should be a conversation with the young person, their parents, counselors, healthcare people of faith. Everyone's different, and this seems like a good measure. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in support? Seeing none, anyone to testify in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, my name is David Lee Brush. I'm with the Missouri Equity Education Partnership, and we are in opposition to this bill. As just one educator in our organization of many educators, I have 30 years of experience in public education at many levels and capacities, and I know that this bill is harmful to education and to outcomes. I'm speaking today as a teacher, or I'm a retired teacher, but I'm still a teacher at heart. This bill can harm student safety. There's a saying in education, Maslow before Bloom, that is to say students who feel safe physically and emotionally learn better, and this bill jeopardizes this. As I said, it can harm student safety. Teachers and counselors and educational professionals should be safe spaces for students, especially if parents are supportive of their transitioning. And we work to build connections with parents all the time, but some waters are very difficult to navigate. And as I have said before in this committee, good parents don't always glow, and we can't always tell when a child is going to be in jeopardy. So through additional conversations with the student, which can take time, the school professionals can work to ascertain whether a student is going to be in harm's way, and also be able to provide language to open a dialogue between the students and the parents, because the parents may not know yet what the student has just come to realize, and the school can help facilitate that conversation and bridge that gap between parents. But at the end of the day, our charge as teachers and educational professionals is the student's safety. That has to be at the forefront of our minds in this, and the timeline of 24 to 70 and 72 hours would make that very difficult. This bill, as it's already been said, is going to harm parental rights, especially for supportive parents. It's going to say, you have rights if we agree with you, but this group of parents doesn't have any rights. It also is going to put students in harm's way again, because it basically is going to sanction bullying. Because if students can't be disciplined for going against, like if a parent wants their child to be called by a different name and use their authentic pronouns, and a student makes fun of them for this, then the student who makes fun of them and is bullying that student cannot be disciplined. So it is going to be school-sanctioned bullying. This is going to harm districts because, as Senator Norrenburn said, teachers aren't going to want to teach anymore, especially if our certificates are on the line and we have to walk such a fine line. Teachers exist outside of school, and so we shop in the community, we go to the community, and if we are with and have people we know are supportive of their own children and are authentic with them outside of school, then there's no safeguards in this bill to keep someone from saying, hey, I heard this person at church call this kid by their wrong pronouns. Yes, it's not supposed to happen, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, and that teachers aren't going to have to spend time away from their students and educational things to be able to defend themselves. It's going to harm learning outcomes. We want to talk about outcomes all the time in this district, in this body, and it's going to harm outcomes. Being authentic and having appropriate connections with students improves outcomes. Mutual trust and respect improves outcomes. One trusted adult who accepts and acknowledges a student's authentic self decreases suicidality and improves mental health, and improved mental health improves outcomes. Every day, Missouri students bring something precious to school. They bring themselves, they bring their hearts, their questions, their fears, their hopes, and every child and their families should be confident that they have are going to be safe and respected being their authentic self. Maslow gets us to Bloom. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. So when we heard the original testimony that we've passed the SAFE Act, making it illegal to do this and transition children, so I guess how do you correlate the two if it's already illegal to go down this road?
Well, the SAFE Act precludes medical transition. Social transitioning has nothing to do with the SAFE Act. It is
all in the same thing,
it is
correct?
not. No, it is not. Social transitioning is dress. It is names. And as a person who has a very unusual name, I can tell you that when you are misnamed by people over and over again, it is very, very hard. I get misgendered a lot. I'm cishet, and I get misgendered. People think my name is David all the time, and I don't mind being David. It was my dad's name, but I'm not. And to be consistently called that is more, it is emotionally wearing on you. And so to do that because you feel like you're not in the right body would even be, I would think, more so. Social transitioning has nothing to do with the SAFE Act. So
you had brought up this allowance for bullying. If you're I don't see that in the language. If somebody's actually physically bullying somebody, this does not repeal any of that, and being harmful, being mean, cruel, it does not.
That is bullying. Bullying is not just pushing somebody down. Bullying is the most
Well, just
harmful
because
kind of bullying
somebody
is actual
calls
verbal.
somebody by their actual legal name is not bullying.
Well, I have students over the years that didn't want to be called Chip anymore, or Donnie, or Richie, or anything like that, and that's their legal name is Richard, or their legal name is William.
Well, sure,
or
my legal
whatever.
name's Richard. I was called Ricky as a kid, and
Right.
I didn't like it, but I didn't see it as bullying. I just
But if
didn't.
you ask someone not to, and they do it repeatedly, then that is a form of bullying. And words, often it absolutely is, and words hurt.
As somebody
a lot
who was
more than
called
physical
Ricky and
punches.
still continues to be, I mean, I don't see it as bullying.
well, I'm glad that
or
you're-
reaching to that level of bullying.
I'm really happy that you are secure enough to be able to have it not bother you. My point is, if it bothers you and you say, please don't do that anymore, and people continue to do that, then the people that continue to do that are absolutely 100% bullies, and I would write them up for it, 100, every single time.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else testify in opposition?
Good morning, Senator. Good morning. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA to speak in opposition. We haven't yet seen the committee substitute, so I can't speak to that. I'm happy to talk to the senators to understand what changes are being made. We just want to point out, on the House side, they actually spent a committee hearing not hearing bills, and they heard presentations from the department about the different routes to the classroom. And one of the things that was very concerning to us is that we have about almost 5,000 teachers teaching today in classrooms who have no certificate whatsoever. And that's not because we don't have an abundance of people in the state of Missouri with teaching certificates. It's because people who have those certificates have either gone into the profession briefly and left, or they have left the profession entirely after a period of time, or they never even went in. At any rate, we have a challenge in meeting the needs of our students to maintain quality certified teachers in every school. When we see legislation like this, we hear Senator Nernbern's concern, we tend to think that that is a viable concern, and that is, if you're telling this is essentially a school board policy being imposed on all of the school boards, by doing that in state law, it makes for a lot of awkwardness that you would not have if this were, for example, embedded in a school board policy. The language here will put both school teachers and principals in weird situations. It's also very scary that the consequences are essentially automatic on behalf of the school official. They have to seek to terminate the teacher. The district would have to seek to terminate the principal and also revoke their livelihood. So for active teachers and active principals, when you have language that lacks the subtlety you can have in a board policy, you're putting it in state code, any violation. For example, if the teacher runs down the student roll and simply asks every kid what their nickname is, and if it isn't an obvious relationship to the name that they have, Rick for Ricky, if it's not an obvious analog, say it's Boo, some unusual nickname would actually be a violation which would require someone to lose their livelihood. So both for the folks who are already in the profession, and this is, it's clear, this bill is going to get a lot of attention amongst people across the state, including young people who might be considering coming into the profession of teaching. If the state has an issue with the policies that school boards have, sometimes the state will go in. For example, last year you did Senate Bill 68, school board policy on cell phones. But to do this directly in the way that this is being done, it presents unclear situations all over the state of Missouri, and it puts teachers and principals in difficult situations where they lose their livelihood. This, we think, will have a chilling effect on the profession. It's going to affect people who are in the profession and people who might be thinking about coming into the profession. For those reasons, we would urge the committee not to move on the bill as filed. Thanks. Happy to answer any questions.
So when the student that I had brought up from Lee Summit, when the parents found out that the school was going behind their back, calling their child, their daughter, Max, and had, just went through this whole rigmarole, that parent, the whole family relocated to a new state, had to find new livelihood, had to seek out extensive therapy for their daughter because of what the school district had done. So I mean, I'm really struck that we would have a mass exodus of teachers that don't want to teach because they can't engage in this sort of behavior.
So, Senator, this bill, or a bill kind of like it, has been filed in the Senate and heard in committee the last 3 or 4 years. And a part of what is affecting the recruitment of teachers into the classroom and whether teachers hang on and stay is the continued public discourse in these topics, which frankly, for most of our teachers, we just had a resolutions committee last weekend. We were talking about the need to address issues like screen use in elementary and the lack of physical education and the child mental health crisis. So, addressing this particular topic in a state-mandated policy is certainly not, in our opinion, the appropriate way to deal with this. I'm not personally familiar with the situation in Lee Summit, but I can tell you, when you continue to have bills like this before the Senate Education Committee, doing the things you're trying to do in this fashion, it does get noticed, and it is another thing that affects whether people hang on in the profession, and it is another thing that affects whether people choose to go into educator prep programs. It's important for the committee to consider
a lot of the
this.
educators that I've talked to that have left or they've moved on to private schools or to different school formats,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily this, it's that it's this sort of thing is thrust upon them that they have to engage in. And that they have to allow for this sort of behavior, and they have to be the facilitators of it, or they're fired from the district.
At a minimum, Senator, do not put the teachers directly in the middle of this. But
they're already in the middle of it. This is absolving them from being in the middle of it.
So if a teacher is in a situation where the policy puts them into essentially an unwinnable situation, they can't figure out what this law means in every subtle situation, right? School board policies can be written in a more subtle way. School board policy, if that's where you're after, that's a conversation you guys can engage in. But doing these sorts of things in state law inevitably creates situations that I don't even think that the sponsor necessarily intends, just a paperwork violation. For example, you've got timelines in here. The consequence under this state law is a loss of livelihood for a failure to meet a timeline. A school board would never think of creating a loss of their livelihood and have to institute all those proceedings against a principal, against a teacher, based upon a minor violation. There would be a subtlety to the way that the policy was imposed that would reflect the overall purpose that the school board had in its policy.
Okay, so we heard testimony from a gentleman from Kirkwood. So when Kirkwood was sending out sex surveys to their students behind their parents' back, I mean, is that the sort of thing that I guess should be uplifted instead of teaching ABCs 1, 2, 3s?
That certainly was not my testimony. Can I just point out that?
But I'm just saying, it's those sort of things that we're trying to put
I now have the
buffers on.
language in front of me, and we'll be happy to review that and let the sponsor know our comments on that. I'm happy to give him feedback.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone else testify in opposition? Please come forward.
I'll bring it back.
Please remember to fill out a witness form.
Good morning. I'm Amy Hammerman. I'm with the National Council of Jewish Women, St. Louis. We are an organization, a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the lives of women, children, and families, and we are located in St. Louis County. I won't reiterate the testimony presented by both Ms. Brush and Mr. Fayan. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. But I will also add that I'm here as in my most important role as a parent, and as a parent of students who are in public school. I'm not here representing the school district that I'm in, but I do serve on our school board, and I say that to emphasize how dedicated I am to all of our students in our district thriving and succeeding. What I hear through this testimony is great frustration from some parents about policies that either don't exist, should exist, or that they disagree with. School policy is developed at the district level because each community is supposed to know what's best for their families. I'm extremely concerned that the state is deciding, frankly, to take a chainsaw where a chisel, a scalpel, is more appropriate. Our teachers want to focus on our children learning. They don't want to focus on policing what the students are wearing and what their names are. We've heard examples of students who use names that aren't their legal name. Frankly, my own children's classmates have nicknames that they are allowed to be called that are gender non-conforming or gender neutral. And I don't think it's the place of the teacher to waste precious time interrogating why that child is asking to be called what they're called. A child may be named DJ because their name is Daniel Joseph and they like DJ better. That child could be DJ, a girl, like the character from Full House. I don't want our teachers to spend time interrogating a student about what they're called or what they're wearing. I want them in the classroom teaching them what Senator Nirenberg talked about, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I will say that I live in a school district that is consistently ranked as #1 in this state, and that is because our school board focuses on what we're here to do and what our schools are here to do, which is educate our children and help them succeed. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Say none. Thank you. Anyone else testify in opposition? Please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Madison Ekrit, and I am here on behalf of the Missouri School Counselors Association. And we are here in opposition of the bill for many of the reasons that have been stated before. Just wanted to emphasize that school counselors do have an ethical code that compels them to partner with parents and guardians. And it is something that is especially important when it does come to these situations of vulnerable students, especially those or including gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transitioning or transitioned youth. While parent involvement is really important, the timeline on this bill can be harmful and also could compromise student safety depending on what their family situation is. We don't know every situation of every family and why students are coming forward to maybe who they feel safe with at school initially, and having a strict timeline that has consequences, like we've stated before, of losing licensure or being fired because school counselors or whatever the responsible adult in the school is trying to navigate the situation, and maybe they aren't able to fully do so within 24 hours or 72 hours. That has really negative consequences and fear that's instilled in these professionals trying to do their jobs. I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Say none. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else testify in opposition? Please come forward. If we could try to be as clear and succinct as we possibly can, because we do have other bills, but we're going to at least attempt to try to get to it. Thank you.
I will try to do that. I have a bit of a cold today, so just bear with me. That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay. My name is Nicholas Tatum. I go by Verity, and I represent an organization called Intact. We are members of Missouri's intersex, non-binary, and trans community. We and the individuals that we represent today are against Bill SB 1085. Our organization would not have to exist if it were commonplace for our public schools to acknowledge the identity claims of its students. For 4 years, I taught public schools in the state of Tennessee at the high school level. If any are unaware, Tennessee is also fond of enacting laws that control gender expression. I have never experienced a moment wherein acknowledging a student's gender expression has caused them to do poorly in class, to become unruly, or to disrupt that class. Accepting their gender identity claims has always led to the student becoming more emotionally stable, more focused, and happier in the classroom. I'm here today to tell you that it does not work in the state of Tennessee, and it will continue to not work here today. Gender identity and expression are such diverse and uncontrollable concepts that the rules that a state entity attempts to create in order to suppress them are quickly outmoded, surpassed by fashion trends and new language and innovation. The unnecessary pressure that the state places upon a teacher through this proposed bill only negatively impacts their ability to teach. It is much more affordable for a teacher to meet a student where they are for who they are than it is to open the state up to the legal challenges that will become the direct outcome of this legislation. It is more profitable for the state of Missouri to prevent losing its LGBTQIA+ citizens to migration, which has cost the state currently $362 million to $879 million in household income. During my tenure as a teacher, I've seen students disrupt classrooms because they wanted to hear a joke or about my day or to ask me about my time overseas. I've never had a moment where a student disrupted class because of their pronouns. I have seen student grades improve when they're respected and when they've found self-confidence, especially when acknowledged for who they say they are. According to the Journal of Adolescent Health's article, Timing of Social Transition for Transgender and Gender Diverse Youth, K through 12 Harassment and Adult Mental Health Outcomes by Dr. Turbin et al. Transgender youth who undergo social transition have favorable mental health outcomes in the short term. They may have worse mental health in adulthood if not protected from K through 12 harassment based on gender identity. It is the responsibility of clinicians to emphasize the importance of adolescents having safe and affirming social environments. In this particular study, they found that when addressed early enough, social transitioning was a positive catalyst in the lives of trans and non-binary students. When you're a teacher and you have a tool like this that is proven to help a student, you use it. The state should refrain from preventing a trans child from having a healthy life. Vote no on this bill.
Thank you. Did you say you're a teacher?
I was in the state of Tennessee for 4 years, yes.
Okay. So in terms of not being disruptive, so I know there's also a trend of like furries. Do you think that's disruptive to the entire classroom of having to accommodate?
Senator, I'm going to be respectful. I think that's conflation.
It's not conflation. I mean, it's a reality and it's happening, and they're trying to force
If you want to spend time, Senator, talking about things that are not related to your bill, or to his bill, that's fine. We can do that all day.
But I'm asking, do you think that would be disruptive to the class and how it operates? If we're having to accommodate literally every
Does it help
identity.
the child's self-confidence?
But it's in how
does it help
school,
their self-confidence?
Hold on. It doesn't help the
Does
school,
it improve their grades?
Probably not, no. I'd say it's disruptive to the entire population of the school.
So in that case, if there is something that is unhealthy for the child that is not improving their grades, yes, I would probably bring that up to the parents. However, if it's something that's about their identity, and I spent a long time in college doing research on identity work and identity claims,
but all these other nations that are actually backwalking their policies because they're finding that it's actually not helping. It's a hindrance on.
I believe that the article that I have submitted in my testimony proves otherwise. So I encourage you to read it.
Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate your information, and I'll distribute it to the committee. Any questions? See none. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming here and for everybody who's able to sit through this. And this is just year 6 for me in the legislature, but it has been 6 years of listening to a lot of folks legislating through hate and trying to legislate things they do not understand. And again, I want to reiterate what I said at the very beginning, that here we are in the Education Committee. We have nearly 1 million kids in Missouri schools, and I would love just to spend one hearing talking about the issues that are really impacting kids and teachers today. I'd love to spend just one hearing talking about what we can do to improve reading, writing, and arithmetic for kids across the state. I would love to spend just one hearing diving into the data of what we can do to continue to recruit and retain educators today. This committee has become an absolute spectacle. And we see both sides picking up their phones because they know it's a show. They know, and this is the stuff that makes the news, and I'm sorry for those who are targeted by this legislation, but it comes down to the fact that all of this has such a chilling effect on teachers, on students, and those who are thinking about going into the profession. And I just want to say here, as a former teacher, as a mom to 3 kids in public schools, and as a Missouri senator, I am sorry. I am sorry that you all have to sit through this stuff every year. And I know we can do better, and I hope we can do better moving forward. Thank you.
I would like to point out, Senator, that we just voted out that you voted against open enrollment
Okay,
to
Senator,
allow
we can do this, and let's just continue these conversations.
to allow students to get out of failing school districts and get to a school to where they could learn. So, thank you very much.
Now,
Ken,
Mr. Chair, as you brought that up,
we're done. But you wanted to bring up saying that this committee hears nothing in regards to education.
Mr. Chair, there's
and you
nothing
voted
in that bill
against
that does
the-
anything to
the
improve
bill.
educational outcomes for students. There
It
is
absolutely
nothing
does,
in that
Senator.
bill.
You voted against it.
Mr. Chair, and I will
Thank you.
continue to speak against that. But I'm serious, Mr. Chair. And what did we do? We had that Baby Olivia video, and we spent 90 minutes on that, 30 minutes on open enrollment, and then a committee sub drops
Well,
last night
when
at
you become
9:30
chair,
at night
we'll
for 40
do
pages.
whatever
That's
it is you
It's
like.
a joke, Mr. Chair. This committee has become an absolute joke.
Anyone else to testify in opposition?
Hi, I'm Stevie Miller. I'm a non-binary trans man from West Plains, Missouri. I was a former teacher at Dora, actually, of all places. And I'm asking y'all to oppose this, and I don't know, this really feels like it was like a waste of my time to get up really early in the morning and drive here to see y'all bicker and not know what the heck you're talking about whenever it comes to trans people, and just not doing anything when it actually comes to doing anything for our students. What are we doing here? What are we doing here?
I don't know. What are you doing here?
Because I had to come up here because y'all are making different, motions to honestly suppress trans people, to make sure that we don't exist, right? Is that what's happening? Was that the point of making this law?
So are you testifying against the bill? So please address the committee, not the bill sponsor, and give your testimony.
Because I had a whole bunch of really things to say, but watching this display, she's right, this is a joke. What is this? You guys are supposed to be in charge of making our laws, and then whenever we come up here, you just disregard. what you're actually supposed to be doing in order to attack vulnerable communities like mine. I urge you to vote no, and I urge you to stop attacking trans people. Do you have any questions?
All right, thank you. Any questions? See none? All right, anyone else in opposition? Please remember to fill out a witness form.
How you doing? Good. Wow. Thank you. How you doing, bud? Hi, my name is Cammie Storm. I'm out of West Plains, Missouri. I'm also out of a small company there called Just Another Human that helps out our community. I'm asking you to vote no against SB 1085. I believe that this bill at its core breaks trust. It forces school staff to out children to their parents regardless of safety circumstances. This bill has no caring, and neither does the sponsor if these kids have abusive parents like mine were. There is no caring in this bill on whether or not outing these kids to these parents is going to cause further abuse at home. There's no safeguards to that. I find that disgusting and harmful. I urge you to truly listen to the parents of LGBTQIA students in your districts and the educators who teach these students. This bill is not only, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit upset at the spectacle that this has been. This bill is not about the truth or protecting kids. Protection listens and learns. Protections asks doctors, families, educators, and the people listening, not fringe reports that we found overseas somewhere that we can say, ooh, look at this. We actually listen to the professionals that come here to speak instead of disregarding them. It was introduced by someone who has already said they will not listen to facts, that his religion matters more than evidence. And when that happens, law stops caring about the people that it's supposed to care about, and it becomes about control. And we saw what happens in other countries whenever we decide to control with religion in the 1930s, but I won't go into details on that. I'm sure you can afford to go to the library and check out a book. I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to remember that governments don't get to enforce ideology or to force your religious thoughts and ideologies down the throats of every constituent. We have a constitution that you're supposed to be upholding. You're supposed to uphold it for every person. Just because I'm trans doesn't mean that you're supposed to throw me away, erase the children that are also trans. Because the state, I'm sorry, I'm asking you to remembering the government doesn't get to enforce ideology at all in any way. It gets to enforce the Constitution of these United States and this state. Because when the state decides which child deserves dignity, no child is safe. If you want your child to feel safe, be a safe parent. Any questions?
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else testify in opposition? We need to be brief. If the subject matter's been covered, let's just leave testimony.
My name is Keith Brown, but my legal name right now is Kathleen. Several nicknames as a kid. In the state of Missouri, you've already made it illegal for children to receive gender-affirming care. In counseling, gender-affirming care always starts with counseling, therapy, psychiatry, always. Especially for affirming, anyone too, especially for children though. You have taken a child's right, a parent's right to give them mental health care. Now you are taking their last chance for care, their last thread of autonomy. When a child gets a chance to socially transition, it prevents suicidality. It gives a child their last chance here in Missouri to feel safe and heard. I am 33 years old, and at 10 years old, with no language or understanding of why I felt the way I did, I tried to take my own life on the Herman, Missouri Bridge. I was already bullied relentlessly by teachers and students alike, and I was experiencing puberty. My suicidal ideation grew worse. Homeschooled, military base raised, church-going Baptist, but I still felt the way I did. And now, with my suicidality in partial remission for 3 years since I transitioned, and due to gender-affirming care, with parents who have seen how miserable I was at 330 pounds, sick, unable to understand, they see it now, and they see it as a positive thing. And my family is primarily Republican, and they all treat me as who I am. I have a long first name, Kathleen, with 2 E's in it, and I've had several nicknames like Keat, Kitty, being the old one. I don't think the government should overstep and force children to harm other children, teachers, parents to hurt their children and ignore their students. Neither does my entire Republican family, including my uncle in Arizona. You've already taken away these children's right to therapy, health care, mental health care, and don't take their last thread of autonomy and decency. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone else testify in opposition? Is there anyone for informational purposes here? Okay. Please remember to fill out a witness form also, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Just grab that so I don't forget.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Brittany Hockman. I live in St. Charles, and I am testifying as someone who, like all transgender people, was at one point a child who was transgender and a student who was transgender. So I don't truly understand what this bill hopes to accomplish. I'm sure we can all agree, all of us here can agree, that it is hard enough for kids to exist in a confusing and ever-changing world. I think that exists regardless of political opinions. I know it was hard enough for me. As a kid, I wanted to have it all figured out. I wished to be brave. I wished I could be myself in a world that told me that to be a boy that I never was. But it took me 17 years to build the confidence to finally say, no, I am not a boy. And there was really only one reason it took so long: fear. Fear that I was wrong, a mistake. Fear of what people would say. Fear of what people would feel. Can you believe that? And fear of what people would do. And oh, how this bill would give people so much more to do. It makes me wonder what would have happened if I were a child today. I remember a beloved teacher of mine telling me to be yourself no matter what. That would be a pretty daunting task if that same teacher was required by law to turn around and go head over heels to report every perceived desire of social transition with my principal within 24 hours and my parents within 72 hours, lest he lose his job. And what if this teacher wasn't beloved? What if he thought he was doing the right thing? With the fear I already harbored as a kid, I cannot imagine the panopticonal fear of making one wrong move, taking one step into being myself, and getting caught. A child being afraid of getting caught for being myself, caught, outed against my will, and made to feel unsafe. And the truth is, it's not like my fear prevented me from being a transgender. I didn't desist. I still came out. I still found joy. I still learned to love who I am, embrace who I am, celebrate, revel in who I am. But that doesn't stop that same fear from looming over me every single day, even as I speak to you now. I could not imagine what my terror would be like with this bill in effect. I think the only ones who could imagine that would be the actual children begging you to just listen. Rejecting this bill is our duty, if not as parents or educators, then as human beings. It is our duty, and I actually say this in earnest, to save our children. Listen to our children.
Okay.
Take any questions or comments.
Thank you. Any questions? See none. Please remember to leave your witness form. Anyone else testify in opposition? Please remember to fill out a witness form and leave it at the table. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jody Wagner. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm the mother of 2 transgender children, and I'm here in opposition to SB 1085. When my children were first reaching school age, my wife and I spent a lot of time and energy trying to find the right school for them. A lot goes into that decision. As one's children approach school age, there's so much more that you know about them than when you first met them, but still so much more to learn about them as they grow into their own people. To decide, we have to weigh things like, will a school be academically challenging enough for my kids? Will my kids like their peers? Are the teachers ready for my kids' own special little brand of nonsense and silliness? We considered all these things and many more when selecting a school for our kids, and we found a school that seemed to be a perfect fit. For years, it was. When our eldest daughter came out to us as transgender at 7 years old, we, as her parents, had a new thing to consider about her school that we hadn't considered before. Would this school, that she now loved and that we chose for her, accept her and treat her like all the other girls in her class? Preparing to talk to her school about her gender identity was harder than picking the school in the first place. Would they reject her and ask her to leave the school? Would we want to leave the school after we spoke to them about it because of their response? Would other kids in her class be okay with her? I'm pleased to be able to say that the school accepted her. We did not want to leave because of their response, and her classmates were absolutely fine with her. This bill is threatening to take away my rights as a parent to parent my child in a way that I've seen her grow happy and healthy. But there's an important step in there that if you weren't listening carefully, you might have missed. Her school, her teachers and administrators, and even her classmates had the choice to accept our daughter for who she is. It's given her the opportunity to live a lot of her life, just like any other kid in her classes. This bill is threatening the school's choice in how it responds to students. There are already things my daughter has lost over the years. Laws have passed that have taken away her ability to play soccer with her friends. It was the first sport that ever clicked with her. Other laws have passed that have taken her health care as a transgender teen away from her. And every time she hears that there's another anti-transgender bill in the Missouri legislature, she gets mad and dejected, and rightly so. I do too. Right now, there's a bill, this bill, that is threatening to take her right to be treated as the typical girl that she is at her school. And she shouldn't have to carry that burden. It breaks my heart that she has to carry that burden. This is why I'm urging you to vote no on SB 1085 to protect the rights of parents, the rights of teachers, and the rights of kids, to let them all continue to build the environment together that allows children to grow and thrive and be the person they are.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else testify in opposition? How many more do we have to testify? Show of hands, please. Okay.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I am not a teacher. I'm not a medical professional. I'm just a mom. I have a prepared statement. I am the stepmom of a trans young adult. I've witnessed firsthand the struggle of trying to fit into society when you feel like you don't fit in your body. The endless therapy, the antidepressants that never work, the lament that he, just a child, is unworthy of love and kindness. In his words, pink was put on me, and I did the girl things, but it always felt like I was playing pretend. You can put pink on a girl and blue on a boy, but any loving parent should want a child who can just be themselves. Our goal should be happy, healthy, well-educated kids who don't walk through school hallways and life feeling hated and thinking that the only solution is to stop existing. An LGBTQ plus youth attempts suicide every 45 seconds. Why aren't you fighting for that life instead of the offense of a boy with nail polish? No parent should ever have to bury their child if we know better and can do better. Protect our children and their First Amendment right to self-expression, please, and vote no.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else testify in opposition? Please remember to, fill out a witness form. You can leave it at the end.
Good morning, committee members. Sage Quorum on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union of Missouri. I will keep my comments very brief. We are here in opposition to SB 1085. We have heard from a variety of people this morning. We've heard from community members, parents, educators, school counselors about the impacts and harms that this bill would cause. We have grave concerns about how this bill would target and chill expression that is protected under the First Amendment, as well as concerns about how this law would be enforced, as well as the incredibly steep penalties for educators and school staff, given the vagueness of this bill.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in opposition?
Good morning. My name is Maggie Olivia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm here on behalf of Abortion Action Missouri in opposition to this bill. You've heard it all this morning for the past 5 years. And as Senator Nurenberg said, it's really disappointing to see this time and these resources and the number of brilliant people in this room right now even, and to think of all of the opportunities that we could be working on. Improving education outcomes for children, providing teachers with the resources that they need to fully stock and supply their classrooms, ensuring that all students are fed across the state of Missouri. But instead, we are wasting our time yet again, targeting children across the state of Missouri. And I just want to conclude with, I heard some egregious comments throughout this sham of a hearing, but Joey, if you're out there and you are listening, you are who you say you are. Thank you.
Any questions? See none.
Just a quick comment. Thank you, Maggie. And again, this has been a long hearing, but it was funny. I was looking up, and you have those moments that more or less ground you in tough moments. And I was looking back at Facebook Messenger, my messages with Joey, and it was so funny. And he said, what I remember most about you, I always loved talking about current events with you. Right? Whether it was, God forbid, an earthquake that had just happened. And he said, did you see the news on this? Or wildfires out in Colorado? And he goes, I just remember walking in and you'd always have a smile on your face. We would talk about the news. He said, I'm sorry I wasn't always the best student, but you know what? You always cared about me. And I thought that was so funny, right? That was my last message from him after we saw him at the pool real quickly when I was with my kids. He goes, sorry, I don't want to bug you too long, but I just so appreciate you always caring about me. There was nothing about his name, his pronouns, his transition. I just cared that you had a spot in my classroom, and I like seeing you every day, right? And I said to Joey, I said, thank you so much just for being who you were and letting me continue to carry your story, because he told me, I want you to continue to talk about me and share your story about how I learned something that I didn't understand a lot about. Mm-hmm. But it was coming from a place of wanting to understand and having empathy and compassion and being okay with not always knowing or understanding or having the answers, but recognizing that it certainly wasn't the place of government to try to legislate that. So, Maggie, appreciate your work on so many fronts. Thanks for sitting through this today.
Right back at you, fellow Maggie. And thank you again, Senator. It's really important. I think every student deserves to have a supportive teacher like yourself.
Anyone else testify in opposition? Okay, seeing none. Informational purposes only. Okay, seeing none. Senator, closing remarks briefly, please.
Just something really brief, just to remind everybody, this is really about parents' rights and parents being informed of what's going on with their children. I thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee, for hearing Senate Bill 1085.
Well, we do have time. I think your other bill will be pretty brief, so we're going to go ahead and move into 1351. Dealing with school board elections.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This hopefully won't take very long at all. Thank you for hearing Senate Bill 1351. Again, Senator Joe Nicola, serving District 11 of Jackson County. This bill simply is changing the school board term from 6 years to 3 years for independent school district only. Independence is the only school district in the state of Missouri that has a 6-year school board term. The vast majority have 3 years, so this is just getting in line with the rest of the state. That's simply what this bill is what this bill's about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none. We'll wait till kind of clear out a little bit. All right. Anyone to testify in support of Senate Bill 1351?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Otto Phage on behalf of Missouri NEA, going on record in support of Senate Bill 1351. The 6-year board term for certain urban districts has been around so long, even I don't remember why that was ever done. But it's certainly now an isolated thing, and our local has already, I think our local is very much in support of moving this forward to having a board with terms just like everybody else. My sense from them is also that the community is generally in support of it. So I think since this bill only affects the independent school district, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to move forward and finally make them have the same board terms that essentially every other school district has, which is 3 years. It's hard to get people to work for free for 6 years at a go, and so the 3-year board term is much more doable. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you for
Thank
your
you, Mr.
testimony.
Chairman.
Anyone to testify in opposition, or continue to go for, excuse me.
Lisa Panett, Armorvine, and we're in support.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Anyone else testify in support? Seeing none. Anyone against? Seeing none. Informational purposes only. Okay, seeing none. Senator, closing remarks.
Thank you, committee, for hearing both my bills today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much. So we have been allotted a little extra time, so we're going to continue with the hearings. I'm going to hand it over to our vice chair. I'm going to start with Senate Bill 1029.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we will now begin the hearing for Senate Bill 1029, sponsored by Senator Brattin. Senator, begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Rick Brattin, 31st Senate District, bringing forth Senate Bill 1029. There was a substitute that was distributed prior to the hearing. It's basically the same concept. The original filed bill was in concept just a conceptual bill for transparency in terms of a checkbook for districts to disclose expenditures. As a county auditor, when I was a county auditor, we had about a $74 million budget in a first-class county, and when I came in, transparency was literally abysmal. You could not find anything where any expenditure was, how much debt we were in, so on and so forth. And I found that to be, going against what I think good governance is ensuring that every dollar that is spent, we're being good stewards, and that people have full capability to find out where every dollar is spent. And when I came in, I partnered with a group called ClearGov, which they're not in the bill or anything like that. They are a third party. But for about $5,000 a year, with a budget of about $74 million a year, we were able to extrapolate the actual raw data that in Excel format, that all accounting aspects of a county, you're able to forward onto them, and they're able to build this highly interactive platform so you can really read it, you can really digest and really get to the bottom of that. And that's what I think absolutely needs to happen with a lot of these districts. We hear time and time again that districts are broke, they don't have enough money to get to the classroom. But I think to be good stewards, we need to make sure that we have policies in place to ensure that we're able to make sure that that is the case. So that's basically what this does. It ensures that all these funds are readable, easily findable. You don't have to have a permission. You don't have to have a login. I mean, you have that capability right at your fingertips to be able to access that information. That goes to expenditures, to debt service, length of debt service, I mean, the whole gamut, so people are able to really wrap their mind around finances, because we spend tons and tons of money with these districts, and, we hear continually of more money, but what is it we're exactly doing with the money we currently have? And I think we're better able to make informed decisions if we're able to actually know where that money is going. So that's the impetus behind this bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee for the senator? Senator Nurnberg.
Okay, Senator, so it's been a long hearing, but one more, here we go. Obviously I support a lot of the provisions of this bill, but quite frankly, all of this is already required by statute, or most of it, right? That if, did you have a chance to see your fiscal note?
So not on the
on the committee
substitute.
the original, okay, but saying right already in chapter 160.066, we already have this, that the school district needs to do all of this. Financial and budgetary information on their website, and now you're just saying that you don't want it to be hidden, you want it to be a little bit more transparent. So is this updated daily, weekly, monthly? What would be your expectation?
So I would like it to at least be as real time as you possibly can. And as auditor, I mean, we did weekly warrants, and that it's not like a arrest warrant. It's the warrant of the financials and expenditures that each week that like a county would have to do. Then I would forward that on, and it would be uploaded in real time. And there's even a capability for whoever you potentially would want to partner with, if you wanted to. It's real time, and they actually are able to be intertwined with your finances, to where the district wouldn't have to do a single thing, and it'd be real time.
Probably though there would be then, and that's even noted, that there would probably be some additional IT costs for school districts to get that up and going, and then obviously ongoing.
Possibly a little bit, but once again, for $74 million budget, is about $5,000 a year.
Okay.
So I mean, it was an additional cost, but I think for the readability, because yes, it is required, but a lot of it's PDF format. You have no clue what you're actually looking at in terms of, line item expenditures. This requires that, hey, I'm able to see who the vendor is, how much they're spending with these vendors. I mean, I'm able to really get a true extrapolation of.
And
everything.
Senator, I am in agreement. I think it's important to see where tax dollars are going,
Yep.
okay? But I also want to just say, at the same time, you know, I hear a lot about there's too much district overhead, we have all these administrative costs, and this would be an additional cost, even if nominal, right? But I do look at this being, is this going to be an unfunded mandate? Are we going to have backing for school districts to get into those that do need to update their IT in order to meet the requirements of this law? But again, talking about sunshine, being able to see everything, being transparent, would you support an amendment to this that would have the same requirement for any school that accepts vouchers?
I mean, they're more of a private institution.
But again, if this is a transparency about taxpayer funds, then it seems like we would have the same requirement for any school that is accepting taxpayer dollars.
Well, we don't have that requirement for other grant programs that go to private organizations funded by the state. Now, this is where they have ownership of my property, they have ownership of literally everyone in the entire county, and then continually want to ask for more resources and say that. So yeah, I think in there's a much different aspect to this, and again.
But again, those are tax dollars, right? And so last year we had an appropriation of $50 million in
Sure.
general revenue, and then this year we're seeing a request from the governor, I believe, of $60 million. And when I look at transparency, I think it's really important if we're putting in tax dollars into private schools, what is happening with those private schools? Are they increasing tuition? What is that money going to teacher salaries, or is that going to curriculum? Where is that money going? And so again, it's just a show me the money.
I understand we say $50 million, but let's look at the billions and billions and billions of dollars that we're sending that we're not able to do this with local.
90% of our students are in their local public school, and so that's why
I didn't
there's
hear
more
what
money.
your question was.
I'm sorry, because more than 90% of our students are in their local public school.
Sure, and that's what I'm saying. There's no real transparency or real capability to dive in to make sure that, like, for dollar, what's making it into the classroom versus what's going to administrative overhead and to
I'm all about
Yep.
transparency of tax funds, and I support that also, and making sure that we can see where those tax dollars are being spent and how those resources are being used in our private schools as well now. Okay, thanks, Senator.
Senator, I have a question for you. Maybe you can clarify something for me. So your goal with this piece of legislation is transparency with regard to tax dollars that are going to and being spent by public institutions.
Correct.
I think Senator Nirenburn was speaking of, well, I know she was because she talked about the most scholars money that was approved in the budget. How is that, in a situation like that, with parental involvement, we're not looking at tax dollars going directly to the institution like we are in public schools. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so in that situation, you've got a qualifying student and parents making the choice for that student that qualifies for the program. Where in the other situation with our public schools, you've got tax dollars that are being paid by constituents, citizens of the district, whether they, take advantage of that school district or not. They live in that school district, so they pay taxes on their property. In many cases, I know in my neck of the woods, it's about 90% of the tax bills going to the public school district. Yep. It's going to that institution. It's being spent by that institution. So I think we're not really comparing apples to apples here. I think it's we're talking about two different situations here. Would you agree with that, Senator?
Oh, sure. Well, because, if I find, and I don't feel that the juice is worth the squeeze sending my kid to a private institution, then I'll pull those resources. Well, that's not the case with these public institutions that, again, like I said, have ownership of your property and will forever have a lien on your property. And I think you should have the capability to know exactly where all those taxpayer dollars are going, especially when year after year we're told that there's not enough money there. When, like you stated, like I had a friend of mine sent me, he had a $4,000 tax bill, and it was like $3,500 was going to the school district, while the rest went to roads, libraries, and ambulance, everything else. So we have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure we know where those dollars are going. And I think it'll just add to accountability.
Sure.
And I brought up my county, It came with a lot of flack. I mean, the departments within, like, I actually posted our credit card statements online. I wanted, like, real radical transparency. It really ticked a lot of people off within the county government. They didn't like knowing that people had that full capability to see where money was being spent. But at the same time, it really, truly did have an effect to where, hey, they weren't going and making, expenditures that really didn't matter, and they really didn't, meet the cause of why people are sending them money. So it had it's a great cleansing effect of waste when people know that the public is going to have access to all of that information. So it's a self-policing mechanism, if anything. So
yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Thank you, Senator. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, we will now take testimony in favor of Senate Bill 1029. Who would like to testify in support of this bill? Welcome. Please state your name. Make sure you filled out a witness form. I see you got one there. Begin when you're ready.
Lisa Panett, Armorvine, and we appreciate transparency and responsibility in government, and that's all.
Any questions from the committee for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else to testify in favor of this bill? Please come forward. Welcome. Make sure you've got a witness form filled out, please. State your name and begin when ready.
My name is Danny Province. I'm from Warrensburg, Johnson County. I was a teacher for 10 years and academic director at a private school for 4 years. I would like to speak in support of the idea of the bill with the amendment proposed by the other senator. And the reason is that, if I understood correctly, it's $5,000 on good stewardship of $74 million of taxpayer money. Is that what was said before? My understanding is that the Republican budget calls for $100 million in school vouchers to go this year. So a greater amount of taxpayer money would then be spent that way than the $74 million budget. So if we're talking about good stewardship on taxpayer money, it seems to me that the greater amount of taxpayer money would be in that voucher program. So I would like to know how that money is being spent.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing that, I got a quick question for you. So you indicated that you'd be in favor of this bill should the amendment that has been discussed be added to it. Would you be in favor of the bill without the amendment?
I do not know if I would be in favor without the amendment. I know that I would be in favor with the amendment.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being here. Anyone else here to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1029? Seeing none. Who would like to testify in opposition? We'll now take testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 1029. Seeing none. Is there anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator, do you have any closing remarks on this one?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. That will now conclude our hearing for Senate Bill 1029. We'll now move into Senate Bill 1300, also sponsored by Senator Brattin. Senator, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Rick Brattin, 31st Senate District, bringing forth Senate Bill 1300. This is just making some revisions to the School Protection Officer Program that's currently in law that allows what is currently in law. It allows for teachers, administrators to go through post-certification of firearms training to become a basic undercover element within their school district to protect our kids. What this does, it's a more robust system. It allows for any staff within the school district to be nominated for this. They have to go through a rigorous process, an approval process, to be able to become the school protection officer. More training, required training a couple times a year with local law enforcement, just to ensure that because as we know, firearms training, especially close quarters and active shooter type situations, require rigorous training, much more than what's actually allowed by law, just a CCW permit holder. So this just makes it much more robust and just rigorous in training. So that's basically in a nutshell what it does. Again, this is already law. This is through post and through that sort of certification through the Department of Public Safety. And we have to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee for the senator? Seeing none, thank you, Senator, for your presentation. We'll now take testimony in favor of Senate Bill 1300. Who would like to testify in favor of this bill? Welcome. Thank you for being here. State your name. Begin when ready.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. Susan Myers of the 20th, here in support of SB 1300, expanding the list of eligible candidates for the SPO program to include the other district employees has been a priority of Missouri's Women for Gun Rights members for several years now. Districts should be allowed to consider the IT tech, custodian, or cafeteria worker along with their teachers and administrators. And in some ways, these employees could be better suited than teachers, being that they aren't responsible for a large group of students at any given time, leaving them freer to respond quickly at the initial sound of gunfire. And let's not mince words. This is an uncomfortable topic that deserves an unemotional, reality-based look at putting in place an effective counterattack plan designed to stop an active shooter in as short a time as possible. Getting discreetly armed and trained responders dispersed throughout the buildings is the best way to have a realistic chance at keeping a low victim count. Anyone who has attended one of Ed Monk's active shooter problem seminars or has read his book, First 30 Seconds, knows it's all about time and math. Once the shooting starts, on average, by the end of the first minute, you can expect 12 victims shot. That's already too many. Extending it out to a 3 or 4 minute rapid response time for police, assuming someone has called 911 right away, you're looking at 24 to 29 victims shot. Missouri's SPO are highly trained, but still some will argue that police are better suited to respond to an active shooter. I'm guessing the 29 who are otherwise going to be shot while waiting for law enforcement to arrive would prefer the person who's already there and armed take the shot and end the attack. As Monk writes, what is most important is not who is best prepared to stop the active shooter, but who can do it the quickest, thereby keeping the victim count low. I thank the bill's sponsor for his continued efforts to implement necessary changes aimed at enhancing the SPO program, allowing our schools to better prepare for an event we can all hope will never come, but surely must prepare for as if it were inevitable. Doing any less for our kids is simply unacceptable. They are, after all, our greatest treasures. Thank you.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, sir.
Next witness in favor. Welcome again. Begin when you're ready.
Lisa Panett with Armorvine. We are in support, but I also did just put down for information only because there is a threatening situation in here, and I just put that needs to be clarified because we don't want the preferred pronouns to be viewed as a threatening situation. As we witnessed earlier in this hearing, we heard how bullying and harassment could be used in a negative way against those people that may not agree with that. And they said, you know, we had a teacher say that they would actually write a student up if that was viewed in that way, if they wouldn't use preferred pronouns. So I'm just making sure here that the threatening situation wouldn't also be viewed in that way, but we are in overall support.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Next witness in favor. Seeing none, do we have anyone here to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 1300? Welcome. State your name. Begin when ready.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Michael Grote, registered lobbyist, appearing on behalf of Missouri School Boards Association. Regretfully here in opposition, really only one piece, and I apologize I haven't had a chance to talk to the senator about it. I think it's fixable. We have a Center for Education Safety, which we train a number of school resource officers and have become the place to go for a lot of this activity. There's a provision in the bill which says that only post-certified officers can do the instruction. While we agree that's very relevant and important for the shooting piece of it, we have a number of our individuals that are former law enforcement, formerly post-certified, formerly commissioned officers, which are no longer with the police force anymore, so they aren't commissioned, so they don't have their post-certification. One of them is considered a leading national expert on school safety and active shooter scenarios. So the way we read this, it would bar those individuals, which have a ton of experience from Columbine until now, from being able to participate and share their knowledge on how to address these things. While we agree for the shooting piece of it and the shooting range piece of it, 100% agree, that makes sense, and there's a number of other provisions of the bill which we agree with. This one little piece, we just would like to work with the senator and try to get it resolved.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for testimony. Anyone else to testify in opposition of Senate Bill 1300? Seeing no one else. Anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator, any closing remarks?
No, thank you very much, Chairman.
That will conclude our hearing for Senate Bill 1300. We'll now move on to Senate Bill 1404, also sponsored by Senator Brattin. Senator, begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and for your patience. For the record, Senator Rick Brattin, 31st Senatorial District. This is Senate Bill 1404, and just make sure that that there's disclosure for tutoring programs that have at least 50% ownership in interest held of potential outside of the United States foreign adversaries that may have some conflict with what's being taught, and make sure that there is full transparency and knowledge of knowing that a lot of these sorts of programs don't have some underlying issue with a foreign adversary that I think is just good governance, especially given a lot of the wants and desires of foreign adversaries that utilize educational systems and programs. I think this is just common sense type of legislation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the senator? Seeing none, we will now take testimony in favor of Senate Bill 1404. First witness in favor. Seeing none. Anyone here to testify in opposition to 1404? Seeing none. Anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Welcome again. Begin when ready.
I happen to know what was going on in this committee today, I guess. This is Lisa Panett, Armor Vine, and the reason why we're testifying for information only is because we just think that it doesn't go far enough. That we agree with alerting, but we want to make sure that we're not creating a loophole in so doing, and we want to make sure that all of it, so if there's any funding that would be foreign, that we have a right to know in regards to that tutoring piece.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator, any closing remarks?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
That will conclude our hearing for Senate Bill 1404. No further business coming before the body. I'll now make a motion to adjourn. Education Committee is adjourned.